That's fine. We need to start by the time we need time because otherwise charge. Or just stream okay. Then if it's not streaming, then just get not recording, just get and think about this.
We're going to start the session in perhaps 1 or 2 minutes. We're just waiting for more folks to come in and join us. So, a few more minutes of silence for if you want to chat around. Go ahead.
Just go out and say hi to everybody, they'll come in.
I think there are a few folks at the registration and few are having breakfast, so I don't know whether
The best way is to go and come in.
do the crowd work.
I will do that in my own way.
Thank you.
Because they are a little bit shy that whether we stop this session.
think it's already 9 to 5, so we should just start the session so that we are on time and not sessions. So, hello everybody, I am Kritika, your coordinator of this session. Legalscapes of Commons, where we discuss about the interconnectedness of Indigenous tenure security, their forest tenures, with livelihoods, sustainable development, and community stewardship for natural resource management. And we have a range of presentations today, right from Uttarakhand, West Bengal, and Maharashtra. So Tejendra and I have organized this session, and Tejendra will be moderating the session, and at the end I'll just kind of try to sum up with whatever discussions we have. Just to give an overview of how we have kind of structured the session is, we speak for 15 minutes each, 5 minutes us because we are representing the same place and the community, and Suchi Shri and Tejendra will speak then 10 minutes each. And after the presentation, we want to kind of have like 30 good minutes of discussion and Q&A. So our presentations will be very brief, but we would like for you to, kind of ask questions, any comments, any feedbacks that you might have, so that we can make it a little more interactive. So now I think I will get it over to Tejendra so that he can moderate the session and can introduce it. Thanks.
So hi.
I don't know what that is. It's just that my voice, I'm loud enough. Yeah.
Very good morning. As Deepika suggested that we will speak for 10 minutes, and I'm Tejendra from IIT Bombay, a PhD scholar. Suchi Shri, can you
I'm also from IIT Bombay. I just completed my PhD. My work is secretary investment and mostly work on Forest Rights Act, its implementation, and the politics around forest rights.
सभी को नमस्कार। मेरा नाम सभी को नमस्कार। मैं उत्तराखंड से, मेरा नाम ललित सिंह रजवार है, जिला पिथौरागढ़। उत्तराखंड में कुल हमारे 3 राज्य हैं, 3 जिले हैं। 3 जिलों में हमारे 11 राज्य गाँव बसे हुए हैं, जिसमें से पिथौरागढ़ जिले से मैं आया हूँ। पिथौरागढ़ जिले में 9 गांव राज्य जनजाति के हैं। 9 गांव में से 5 गांव ऐसे हैं जो वन भूमि में निवास करते हैं। इस दौरान वन भूमि में निवास करते हैं तो हमें वन FR के तरह पट्टे मिले, जो 83 पट्टे मिले हैं राज्य समुदाय को। उसके बचाव हम लोग इसकी लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं अभी FR की लड़ाई इसलिए लड़ रहे हैं ताकि हमारा जो जंगल है और ज़मीन है वो जंगल में निवास करता है। हमारे जो राज्य समुदाय पूरा जंगलों पर निर्भर है। हालांकि माना पहले हमारे पूर्वज लोग जंगल में रहते थे, उनका 6 महीना जंगल में ही एक जगह खाते पीते थे और फिर 6 महीने दूसरी जगह चला जाते थे। उसी दौरान फिर हमें 2006 अधिनियम वन अधिकार 2006 का कानून आया। उसके बच्चे हम लोगों ने पट्टे बनाने शुरू किए। 2008 में प्रक्रिया शुरू हो गई थी हम लोगों की। फिर उस दौरान 2013 और 18 में फिर 22 में जाके हम लोगों को पट्टे मिले, जो वन आधारित FRC वाले पट्टे हैं। वो 83 पट्टे हैं पूरे राज्य समुदाय के 5 गाँव में। उसी दौरान हम ये चाह रहे हैं कि हमारी राज्य कम्युनिटी ये चाह रही है उन पट्टों को राजस्व में हस्तांतरित करने के लिए चाह रही है, जो अभी तक नहीं हुआ है। उसकी लड़ाई अभी लड़ रहे हैं। उसके बाद हम लोग फिर निकला है CF लेके, जो हमें सामूहिक दावा। अगर हम लोग जंगल तो जाते हैं, जंगल से घास लकड़ी सब कुछ लाते हैं, अगर वायदे में किसी दौरान वन विभाग अगर हमारे ऊपर ऑब्जेक्शन करती है तो जंगल में नहीं जाने देती। इसलिए हम CFR की लड़ाई भी लड़ रहे हैं। जैसे जब हमारे समुदाय वाले राज्य समुदाय जो है पहले सन 30, 32, 33, 40, 45 में से जंगल से रह रहे, उन्हारा जंगल से निर्भर है, सब कुछ वो जंगल से खाते पीते थे, कंदमूल ये सब जंगल से लाते थे। तो उनका मानना है कि हम सब जंगल से जब सब कुछ लाते हैं और जंगल को बचाते भी हम लोग। जैसे आग लगती है, हमारी राज्य समुदाय जंगल को बुझाने जाती है, पेड़ छोटे छोटे फलदार पेड़ ऐसे लगाते रहते हैं। तो क्यों ना हम सोच रहे अगर जंगल को हम ही बचा रहे, हम ही देख देख कर रहे जंगल की, तो हम लोग CFR क्यों नहीं ले सकते, हम सामूहिक दावा क्यों नहीं भर सकते। हमारा अधिकार है, हम जंगल से सब कुछ लाते हैं और जंगल को बचाते हैं। इसलिए हम चाह रहे हैं कि हमारा जो समुदाय चाह रहा है कि हमें CFR मिल जाए तो और अच्छा रहता है। फिर IFR को लेके हमारी एक और है जिससे बहुत दिक्कतें आती है। IFR में हमें पट्टे के द्वारा हमारे दस्तावेज नहीं बन पाते हैं और हमें इस दौरान IFR में एक किसान सम्मान निधि मिला है जो बहुत कठिन उससे मिला है। हमें बहुत संघर्ष करना पड़ा क्योंकि 2-3 साल लगे हमें किसान सम्मान निधि मिलने में। जब हम लोगों ने इसकी फॉर्मेलिटी भरी, इसके बाद 2-3 साल में जाके ये अभी भी पूर्ण तरीके से नहीं मिले, आधे जो लोगों को मिले हैं किसान सम्मान निधि। हम फिर अभी किसी को लेके IFR तो मिले हैं हमें और CFR के लिए भी हम सोच रहे हैं। हमारे समुदाय अभी हमने एक बार CFR को लेके दावे भरे थे, 1 वर्ष ही हमें हुआ दावे भरे, हमने खंड स्तरीय में जमा कर दिया लेकिन वो हमारा निरस्त कर दिया गया CFR को लेके। तो वो अपनी बात हो गई है, मुझे धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Lalit ji, and I am happy to translate it in English in case we have people in audience who are non-Hindi speakers, for sure. But before doing that, I would like Dharmendra ji also to introduce himself and a little bit about his work with FRA, because he's going to speak in Hindi and it will be easier for me to kind of translate both of them in a go. So yeah.
धन्यवाद। आप सभी को नमस्कार। मैं धर्मेंद्र, मैं भी उत्तराखंड के पिथौरागढ़ जिले से बिलोंग करता हूँ और हम लोग जो रहते हैं बिल्कुल बॉर्डर एरिया है, नेपाल चाइना बॉर्डर एरिया है। और जो धारचूला ब्लॉक पड़ता है उसी के अंतर्गत जैसे ललित ने बताया कि 9 गांव राजी ट्राइब्स के हैं, तो इनकी जनसंख्या भी बहुत कम है, बहुत ज़्यादा नहीं है। एक तरह से हम कह सकते हैं कि जो विलुप्त की कगार पे होते इस तरह की जनसंख्या है कि 915 ये 9 गाँव में है और टोटल ऑल उत्तराखंड में 1075 की जनसंख्या है इनकी। और जो डेथ रेट है इनका वो बहुत ज़्यादा है और बहुत कम उम्र में, 35 से 40 की उम्र में। क्योंकि जिस तरह से इनका रहन सहन है, पहले तो ये इनके साथ जब हम पहली बार मिले थे सन 1993 में, जब हमारे जो पुराने साथी थे वो गए थे, जब ये कुछ झोपड़ों में या गुफाओं में रहते थे उस समय, तो धीरे धीरे इनको सरकारी आवास मिलने लगे, पक्के आवास मिलने लगे, वहाँ शिफ्ट हुए। इनका लिटरेसी रेट भी बहुत कम है, बहुत ज़्यादा लोग पढ़े लिखे नहीं है। तो कुछ सालों से इनके लिटरेसी पे भी हमने काम किया है और इनके बच्चे आज आश्रम जैसे स्कूल है, जैसे बोर्डिंग स्कूल्स है, वहाँ पर पढ़ रहे हैं। लगभग 100-150 बच्चे अभी इनके पढ़ रहे हैं वहाँ पर। तो इसके साथ इनका हेल्थ का इशू भी है, लाइवलीहुड का भी इशू है। इनके घर रोड से लगभग 7 किलोमीटर के दायरे पे पैदल है, जो 2 से 3 घंटे हमको चलने में लगता है। एकदम पहाड़ की चोटी पर है, तो वहाँ पर रहते हैं या घने जंगलों के बीच में रहते हैं। एक गांव तो ऐसा जहाँ आज तक लाइट नहीं पहुँची। जब सरकार से कहा गया कि इस गांव में लाइट नहीं है, तो उन्होंने लाइट देने की जगह पे सोलर पैनल उठा के दे दिया उनको कि भैया आप इसका यूज करो और आपको लाइट्स नहीं मिल सकती। बल्कि वो रोड देने को तैयार है लेकिन उन जगह पे लाइट्स देने को तैयार नहीं है। और जब हम इनकी बात करते हैं इनसे मिलने की, तो इनसे मिलना भी बहुत टफ होता है। जैसे कि कल भी आप लोगों ने सुना होगा, राजी या कोई भी आदिवासी जब अपने पेट के लिए सुबह निकलता है तो शाम को ही मिलता है, तो मिलना इनसे बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है। अगर हम इनके साथ हम इनकी जमीन की बात करते हैं और इनकी आजीविका को छोड़ देते, तो ये दोनों चीज़ बहुत मुश्किल हो जाती है कि इसको 1 मिनट से कंपेयर करना बहुत मुश्किल हो जाता है कि हम पहले इनके जमीन के लिए लड़े या इनके आजीविका के लिए। क्योंकि जितना ये जंगलों पे निर्भर है उतना शायद कोई नहीं होगा। लकड़ी, घास, लकड़ी, जड़ी बूटी लाना, ये सब इनका जंगलों से है और आजीविका भी जंगलों से ही चलता है। पहले ये इनकी समुदाय के लोग लकड़ी के बर्तन बनाया करते थे, आज वो लकड़ियाँ कहीं नहीं मिलती है। और साथ में जो दूरस्थ इलाकों में ये लकड़ियाँ तो वन विभाग कहता है कि आप नहीं जा सकते हो। अब वन विभाग इनको ये भी कहता है कि CFR की आपको क्या जरूरत है, क्योंकि हम तो आपको खुले तौर से लकड़ी, सूखी लकड़ियाँ लाने दे रहे, घास लाने दे रहे हैं, जड़ी बूटियाँ लाने दे रहे हैं, लेकिन आपको CFR क्यों चाहिए। जब इन्होंने कहा कि हमें CFR चाहिए और CFR से हम ये सारी चीजें कर पाएंगे, जड़ी बूटियों को ला पाएंगे, हम बेच पाएंगे, तो उन्होंने कहा कि हम आपको आज़ादी देते हैं, आप अपने यूज के लिए लाइए, और जो सूखी लकड़ियाँ आप बेचते हैं कम से कम ये 10 किलोमीटर चल के सूखी लकड़ियों को मार्केट तक बेचने लाते हैं। तो इस तरह का ये काम करते हैं। अर्पण जब इनसे मिला था तो इनके पास ना जमीन नाम पे थी, ना इनके पास पक्के आवास थे। अर्पण ने काम किया, जो इनकी झोपड़ियाँ बनी थी वहाँ पर जैसे प्लास्टिक्स होते हैं, बरसातों के टाइम में उसको ढकने के लिए दिया, बच्चों को वहाँ पर नजदीकी सेंटर्स जो स्कूल थे वहाँ पर पहुँचाया, बच्चों को थोड़ी शिक्षा से अवगत कराया, क्योंकि इनके वहाँ ड्रॉप आउट रेट्स बहुत ज़्यादा थे। जैसे बाल विवाह कहते हैं हम, वो भी अभी भी है इनके वहाँ, लेकिन कुछ समय से भी इनके बीच में थोड़ी जागरूकता आई है, तो ये भी थोड़ा कम हुआ है। तो थैंक यू। अगर आपको कुछ पूछना तो फिर फाइनल। थैंक यू।
All right. Do you want to share some pictures as well? Can you put some slides, because I think Dharmendraji has some pictures of the community. So, to kind of wrap up also with these pictures, as Dharmendraji and Lalitji talked about their, the initiatives that the Arpan Association for Rural Planning and Action had been doing, and Lalitji, who had been associated with that as well, where with the communities, there's this local NGO that we am also part of. We work for FRA rights, community stewardship, as well as how communities can be empowered in decision making through political, legal awareness of the law, of FRA, of other laws like panchayat laws and other things. So the people that we are talking about here, to give you a little bit brief on, I think both of them have shared as well. So this community is officially known as Van Rajis. It is one of the particularly vulnerable tribal groups of Uttarakhand. There are only two particularly vulnerable tribal groups, that is PVTGs of Uttarakhand. One of them is the Van Raji community that live most of the population live in the Askot Wildlife Sanctuary in Pithoragarh, which borders Nepal. And the community had been living there for like centuries. There is back in those days, like if we are talking about like ancient times, there was a Pal dynasty whose lineages they follow, and these people during the British invasion and stuff, these people kind of fled to the forest and they just stayed there. And after colonial and post-colonial policies, they have been dispossessed from their lands, their forest lands, and now they are, most of the 11 villages that are there of the Van Raji community, they live at the buffer areas of the Askot Wildlife Sanctuary. And now, I think it's been almost since 2011 when the the FRA Act came into the state. They have been trying to get their individual forest rights and community forest rights, as well as their rights to community resource use and conservation and protection. But again, that had been a struggle, and that is what I'm going to talk to you about in my own presentation. So these are some of the pictures of the community that we're talking about. The dry timber, what do you call it? The wood logs. Yeah, the wood logs that the community, mostly the women in the community kind of take from the forest and kind of sell it in the local market for like in breweries and local dhabas, restaurants. So the communities literally travel 10 kilometers from remote top of the hill areas and then just come down and sell these wood logs to the local market. Along with that, most of the community members are employed as casual laborers, either in agricultural fields or construction sites. So they do not have any sustained permanent source of income or livelihood. And one of the reasons that community expressed that is also because of the insecurity of their tenures, because the land that they have been placed in, these are somewhere that we call Tonga land, like the infertile sort of land where there is literally least probability of growing any crops, and even if they can, these are like very small land holding that most of the communities kind of have, and most of the lands are like very infertile. So these are some of the initiatives that Arpan had been doing, and to kind of understand these issues of livelihood, and I think that Mendraji kind of mentioned the housing issue, land issue, and how health is also one of the main issues, and road construction. A lot of these issues are somewhat very much connected to the issue of land. And in my presentation, can you put in my presentation please? So in my presentation, I'm kind of trying to, I'll try to kind of connect these dots of what is happening here, and yeah. And this was part of my, actually this was part of my PhD project. Sorry? Thank you. So this was part of my PhD project where I looked at the issue of Forest Rights Act in the Uttarakhand state, and particularly looked at the Rajwar communities, what's happening, what's the governance process like. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about one of the papers that is in the press at the moment, where I talk about how Indigenous tenure governance kind of undermine justice for the community, but also it kind of undermines environmental stewardship of them as well, because as we've discussed, there are a lot of interaction things that the community had to face. And on top of that, there is another interesting activity that had been going in the forest, hidden, well known, but less talked about when we talk about FRA, and I'm gonna talk about that in a little bit moment. But to kind of open that Pandora box, I need to first kind of briefly discuss about what are the kind of FRA rights that we are talking about here. It's not just individual land rights or community forest rights, but also the rights of participation in the tenure governance process of the communities, their control and management rights, and especially habitat rights for PVTGs like the Rajwar community or the Vandraji people. Can you put in the next slide? Yeah. And in this case, particularly, so far, it's been almost 2 decades of FRA enactment, and in the area, with the Vandraji community, there had just been one aspect of FRA that has been followed, and that is how to give the community tenure, land tenure for cultivation and habitation, which is individual forest rights. Not even participation in tenure governance, right? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But first, as I think Laliji also mentioned that the community is now accessing PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, but it is very interesting to understand how that came about. So during my field work, when I interacted with a lot of community members, I got to an understanding that the community, mostly women who were actively being part of Arpan and had actively been part of FRA tenure security movement, they were not aware first off about what FRA is, and on top of it, what the government or the state officials who went to the forest for collecting land documents, or because there are a lot of land and other documents that were required. So the state kind of proposed FRA as a scheme of land distribution in order to access this cash benefits that PM Kisan Samman Nidhi was providing them for. And that's why many of the IFR rights kind of took off, because the state kind of framed the issue of FRA when even the local government organization was proposing to give community FRA. the reason why IFR took off is because the state thought that yeah, it will be good for the communities because they'll get access to the welfare state, the benefits, not just money but also other benefits and irrigation facilities and others. And this was one of the quotes that many of the women kind of talked about, but this particular person from one of the villages mentioned that, that we were told land would be distributed under the Forest Rights Act and we would receive money afterwards like farmers from the nearby areas do. And, they get somewhere around 2,000 rupees in like 3 months. So that was one of the framings that the state kind of proposed when it comes to FRA implementation in the region. Another one is, as I mentioned, as kind of I hinted about, was the reduction of tenure to just IFR and not even considering participatory rights or autonomy of the community in the governance, collective governance forum, like Forest Rights Committee, SDLC, DLC. Till now, there had not been a working FRC in place. There is one FRC that has been created now as we are kind of working towards FRA in the last 1 or 2 years. But so far, participatory rights and decision-making rights of the community, not only in FRC but also SDLC and DLC, had been undermined, had been rejected, had been ignored, blinkered upon. And this is not something that the state or the implementing bodies kind of understand as important. And on top of that, so tenure had been reduced and then autonomy had been undermined. But the third aspect, very important aspect, next one, the very important aspect of this whole FRA governance process also kind of blinkers upon the environmental price that insecure tenure kind of puts in place, and that is what is Chirani in the area. Chirani is like earlier it was considered as a craftsmanship of the community where they used to make wooden utensil and kind of barter it in exchange of food grains and other items. But now local contractors, like local timber contractors, contact community members, some community members, not all, to kind of illegally log timber from the forest, because these are the forests that only the community not can, only access. Like people can access these forests, but nobody dares to venture into the deep, dark forest area. Not even the forest guards of the local, forest guards or even forest officials, because they have big beat areas and they don't, they don't have the capacity to kind of venture into the forest to kind of monitor these activities, whether illegal timber logging is happening or not. But then, when you talk to the community members who do Chirani, they would say one thing, that if we don't do it, how will we feed our children? Because this is one of the sources of their income. And because of that, the conservation kind of loses its ground. And without rights, I don't think so conservation will ever kind of gain its ground, right? So the path ahead now, I think, calls for a more holistic vision where, rights are, where the rights are neither just on papers but also autonomy and welfare state is kind of considered, and we must recognize that, the entitlements are not just for the welfare access, but also for conservation and for managing natural resources in the most sustainable way possible. And now with urban, after finishing my PhD, I have associated myself with this local NGO called Urban that I described about, where we now are starting to build capacity, not just of the community but also the state actors on what FRA is, because still there is lack of clarity on FRA rights, FRA governance, which I feel is more important to kind of not only empower communities but also the states. We are now organizing training workshops. We now have a seminar actually next month at the state level where we are bringing in multiple state officials to kind of discuss about the Rajwar communities issues as well as what are the way forwards to kind of take up FRA governance in the most just and holistic manner. So yeah, I'll stop there.
Good morning, everyone. So my work is primarily regarding the co-management of forests in West Bengal, specifically in Purulia district. It is a part of my doctoral dissertation co-authored with Professor Sarmishta Patnaik of IIT Bombay, Humanities and Social Sciences. So first thing that I want to say before I go into the history is that West Bengal has the most curious case of community forest management and forest rights. It has one of the most robust JFM programs, joint forest management programs in India. In fact, the first co-management program, the first joint forest management program was happened in West Bengal in Bankura, Arabari district around 1972. Since then, the program has grown exponentially, covering many districts and many blocks. But however, when we come to want to say that governance in forest governance in West Bengal has a very clear trajectory from the total eminent domain of the forest department to decentralization. There is one watershed that I would particularly want to note here. It is the West Bengal Private Forest Act of 1948. As many of you would know here that before 1948, especially after the Chotnagpur Tenancy Act, so a lot of forests, the private forest areas, they had their own bundles of customary rights, own state-recognized community rights. So since West Bengal Private Forest Act of 1948 and prior to that the Bihar Private Forest Act of 1943, a lot of these rights were extinguished. So all the forests became state forests, and whatever customary rights existed in these areas, Act and following that, during the Naxal period, there was a long history of struggle between the forest dwelling communities and the more centralized forest department. In fact, the first GFN program was there was a lot of forest destruction during the conflict period. On one hand, there was forest department, and on the other hand, there were the forest dwelling communities. And the first JFM happened in 1972, right after the Naxal period, to address the increasing, ever-growing conflicts. And especially since 1990s, we see a more right-based approach. We see the JFM coming into being, but at the same time, we see this new category of encroachment that particularly became prominent since Supreme Court's Godavarman judgment in 1996, when dictionary definition of forest was adopted, and more or less all forest land, even if they're on legal revenue land or common land, they became incorporated as legal forests. And then we see this new criteria of encroachment, which in a way should have been addressed by the FRA, but as we see in 2018 verdict of the 2018 guidelines of the Supreme Court, that any person whose claims were rejected by the FRA could be considered as an encroacher and removed from the forests. So GFM in West Bengal has been very successful in several districts. However, I am kind of juxtaposing it with the very low performance of FRA implementation in West Bengal. See, what should have happened is since GFM is community managed forest program, with the FRA, the GFM areas should have been counted as the community forest resource areas, the CFR areas. But what actually happened was in her study, this is the statistics to show that only IFR was implemented for a very long time in West Bengal, and that was also completely arbitrarily through the district administration without involving the Gram Sabhas at all. And this could be traced to 2008 guidelines of the West Bengal government, which sort of says that we will have Gram Sansads instead of autonomous Gram Sabha. And Gram Sansad, as you know, is a body which is very much influenced by the electoral politics, by the ruling parties. And West Bengal in that case has a very rigid party state structure, may it be under left front or under the TMC government. But the party structure was never diluted, and the GFN, the Gram Panchayat, the Gram Sansad all became a mode through which forest governments could be kept under the ruling party control. So if as it tried to challenge that structure through Gram Sabhas, dilute that structure through Gram Sabhas, faced multiple challenges, starting with the West Bengal government guidelines, and then of course even at local levels, at bureaucratic levels, at literally every levels. This is 2025 data of the MOTA. You can see that West Bengal falls far short in FRA implementation, especially in matters of CFR. In fact, in 2016 data of CFR says that there is practically zero CFR, community forest resource recognition in West Bengal. So, and also even when you get data in BCWD data and MOTA data, there is a lot of fabrication, and we don't even know how much CR land actually got, the community rights land got incorporated in community forest rights land, and so on. So this is of course a state-wise implementation. I can elaborate on it later if I have time. So I just wanted to see through my ethnographic observation during my doctoral research. So what happened to this institution of JFM, Community Forest Management, when the movement regarding implementation of FRA kick-started in Purulia district of West Bengal, following this one palm storage project, Turga palm storage project, which was challenged in the Kolkata High Court by PIL, and the High Court verdict was not favorable. The High Court mentioned that Gram Sabha verdict is actually not necessary, and forest clearance could be obtained on basis of Gram Panchayat meeting. So there was a lot of data fabrication regarding this one particular case, the Turga Palm Storage Project case. And so after the verdict, the movement actually kind of kick-started in this one hill range, Ajotha Pahar hill range in Purulia district. And the Adivasi collective Prakriti Bachao Adivasi Bachao Muncho, PBAPM, they formed around 20 Gram Sabhas in this area between a span of 2 years, between 2022 and 2024. So there are a list of projects that's in the pipeline in this particular area. It's mostly a Santal community-dominated area, and they form the base of the organization PPABM. So Purulia again is a curious case, because Purulia was a part of Bihar till 1956, and when Purulia became a part of West Bengal in 1956, Western language, it lost the protection of the Chotanagpur Tenancy Act, and also lost the status of fifth schedule. So there was no fifth schedule in Bengal. So in this entire region, PESA could not be implemented, and the first time Gram Sabha started to be talked about was after this period. Although there was some movement in North Bengal prior to this, in West Bengal also, because of the Maoist influence in the area till 2009 or 10, the process of FRA implementation started very late. So my field observations say that with growing popularity of the movement, the FRCs, the FPCs, the Forest Protection Committee under the JFM, they started to become defunct. At least they stopped. Many of them stopped attending meetings, and then many of the FPCs reconstituted themselves as FRCs, or Forest Rights Committees. The one study village, Kalicharna, they did it even as TPSP movement just started to gain grounds. So the FPC itself became an FRC, and following that the Gram Sabha movement started. So then there's another village, also directly impacted by the TPSP, Rangabari Lahore. So they formed their FRC while there was still an existing FPC, and the two kind of worked parallelly and also contradicting each other often. So and also a lot of these FRCs were formed as a part of Santal community identity assertion, because the Turka Pump Storage project, it was supposed to submerge the sacred Maranguru hill to the Santal community. So when the movement started, a lot of Gram Sabhas was formed also because there was a growing disillusionment with the forest department, because the forest was already thinning because of the coups, the large-scale felling operations, and also because forest department had given clearances to all these big projects, and then they made encroachment into an issue, and the FSS tried to follow the forest department argument on encroachment by stopping vehicles from leaving forest areas and so on. Basically, it's because of the inactivity of the FPCs, and the forest department also started losing a lot of its funding from outside. So their force contracted, and also a lot of FPCs were not getting paid on time. So a lot of dissatisfaction regarding the FRC, regarding the forest department came up in this area. And it was seen that a lot of newly constructed Gram Sabhas and FRCs are carrying out environmental works like putting out forest fire and most interestingly preventing encroachment. So one very interesting observation regarding this period is that even when FPCs are reconstituting into FRCs, we get encroachment as a still persisting issue that FRCs were only very eager to take up on. So these are people, this is our forest area, CFR area, and these are people we will not let enter our forest area. I mean, the entire logic of encroachment posed and the logic of eminent domain and who can enter forest, when they can enter forest, it has been internalized by the FRCs, and even where Gram Sabhas are there, Gram Sabhas exist. And so there is some kind of legal moral claim of environmental consciousness and a legal claim over the land that implementation that at least the constitution of Gram Sabhas helped to achieve. And the bodies cannot do away with GFM completely because FRA hasn't been implemented there properly. Even the Gram Sabhas have been formed and claims filed with the SDLC and the DLC, we don't see a single CFR implementation, a single claim, a single title given by the DLC to any of these Gram Sabhas, to any of these villages, and this is after filing numerous RTIs with the DLC. So this is also about environmental labor that has been provided by the Forest Rights Committee, by the Gram Sabha Committee. There are kind of multiple sort of claims. So on one hand, Gram Sabhas have tried to reject the party state structure that has been kind of taken forward by the JFMCs, by the Gram Sansad, but on the other hand, there are legal restrictions. On the other hand, absolute non-implementation of the FRCs have impeded the process of kind of completely doing away with JFMCs. And the most important observation, of course, remains that the logic of encroachment that has been so much internalized that the boundaries of encroachment, they have remained even when the movement has gained a lot of momentum. So thank you.
Hi, good morning. So my paper's title is Implementation of Forest Right Act and Changing Landscape of Forest Governance in India. So I use the institutional political economy approach to understand the implementation in culturally, basically, and it's in itself a case of curiosity and in case of the motivation across the India also. The political economy approach I have borrowed from the Kaswan work, which come very handy. So there are three major framework to understand basically institutions as equilibrium, institution as norms and rules. So in political economy approach, we favor to constraining the human nature and human behavior, as human beings are motivated by self-interest. So in this paper, I try to seek to structure the legal rules and the social norms that how they influence economic transaction in case of FRA basically. So institutions are basically, I understand, as a set of right and obligation affecting people's economic transactions. Traditionally, if we see what is political economy or for policy public policy, so basically policy analysis focuses on the technocratic concern mostly, but political economy takes a unique, very different perspective here, and it's motivated by the political endeavor also. So there are a lot of lawmakers, bureaucrats always involved in the policy making, and the politics also plays very pertinent in shaping the policy choices. And if in case of FRA implementation, what I observed in Gadchiroli that there was a lot of involvement of civil society and other stakeholders basically. Let me go directly to we already know about the history of forest rights, like how campaign of survival dignity came together, and then it led to the direction of MOEF, and then the whole right-based approach came in picture. So in the very beginning of the formation of a state, the different interest group has been involved basically. So this is the basic structure how we understand this during my field observation, that how FRC and then SGLC and DLC as well as SLMC works. So and the Maharashtra is a scheduled area, and so there are a different structure of governance also at the same time. FRC works basically main core of at the village level, where people apply for IFR and grants of this CFR claims, and then it goes to basically SDLC, then DLC, and then SLMC also take care of those cases which are not claimed not basically passed by the DLC. So in case of that, if you see role of but my point of here is that the inclusion of OTFDs and exclusion of this OTFD category is very pertinent in my study. What I saw that there basically they have if you see that inclusion category was topic of debate is still in wildlife conservation, as the vehemently opposed including the non-tribal person. And as per the FRA legislation, chapter 1 rule 2 defines that traditional forest developers as any person and members of the community who has for at least 3 generations. So for OTFDs to show this 3 generation of the document was I found challenging for them, and most of the claims were rejected on that basis only. And during the interaction with the Sikha Singh, he was a DM that time, 2019. So he suggested that then the spirit of the law to legalize the encroachment of forest dwellers till 2005. But unfortunately, so he asked for some sunset clause also. So bureaucratic mindset also have that there should be implementation processes should be have one deadline so that FRA can be implemented in full ethos. So there is a field stories tells that that the people are keep coming since 2008 in culturally, which is also very well recognized in case of CFR implementation as well as IFR. But there are still challenges at the level of, in case of core TFDs basically. So there are a lot of shortcomings during the CFR, what I came to know. So more than 1,500 villages have adopted the this control of traditional, like in case of tendu collection and bamboo also. And if we see in conclusion, what I say that in India it's play for us a pivotal role basically, and different institutions at the village level, block level, and district level. There are a lot of institutions involved in this implementation, basically to undo the historical injustice, and it guarantees the forest management and conservation at the village level also. So yeah, thank you. So I will open the floor for questioning, and we have around 10-20 minutes of, yeah.
I think we have a question.
Two quick questions. One is you mentioned about the rejection of CFR cases at the sub-division level committee and district level committee. So what are the primary reasons for the rejection, CFR applications?
Like in Uttarakhand's case?
Yeah.
So what happened? Sorry.
And second question is for Ms. Chatterjee. That you mentioned about the non-functionalities of the FRC. So FRC, forest rights committees. So non-functionalities, when those are dying institutions, or maybe not vibrant as it was. So did you do anything precise that what are the causes for these non-functionalities from which it is emerging, and has there been any serious effort from any CSOs? Is there any CSO working to strengthen the FRC institution? And also, what about the 2012 amendment implementing the inclusion of women? Yeah, sorry.
So in case of CFR in particularly Rajwa people's case, it is very interesting to see what happened. So when the NGO kind of and the community kind of said that we need community forest rights as well because FRA consists it, what the state representatives, so here there is social welfare department that kind of was looking after the FRA implementation. What they straight away said was, first we're gonna do IFR and then we'll think if we can do CFR. So they straightforwardly rejected the CFR claims, and these CFR claims were just applications to start the process. There was no mapping that was done because all the mapping exercises have to be done by the forest department and the social welfare department conjointly, right, with communities. But that didn't happen. So what happened was, committee said that we need these, they gave an application that we need CFR rights, and they straight away said that first we'll look after IFR rights and then we'll think about CFR rights. So that was the only reason that they straightforwardly rejected consideration of CFR, right? It was not the CFR itself, but just the consideration of CFR that was absolutely rejected at the first place.
So for the IFR cases, was the conversion from the forest land into revenue land, was that?
Has not happened yet. It has not happened yet.
And lastly, what is the state monetary committee decided? Has there been any intervention?
Interesting, very interesting question. There is no SLMC. That's what the thing is.
I have been working with.
Just imagine there is no FRC created. How can we even think SLMC created? So when I went to the state level to understand who is at the SLMC committee, so I went to the tribal directorate and asked who takes who, because they are the one who are asking the DLC people to give us a status report of FR implementation. And they said we just take reports for implementation, whatever has happened, which we have been directed from above, and we just go about that. So yeah, I'll ask first Suchi Shri to answer the question.
There is an SLMC
filed RTI,
Yeah.
they don't know they're part of the SLS.
That's what I'm saying. But then, like on paper, right?
It's there, all you need to do is tell them you have been formed.
Home.
Yeah.
So when I was doing, when I was trying to understand, so I went to the tribal director and they said there is no SLNC. So I was like, how is forest department included? They're like, they're not included. So this is like 2022. I'm not sure when the SLMC was formed in that case, but back in 2022.
They've been formed when the Act has come into force.
But on paper.
They don't know, and they don't know their roles. That's the problem.
All right.
But
They've been formed. So in that case, I think FRCs are formed in Rajbar people's case at the local level, but they don't know what happened.
Exactly.
But again, is it like literally formed then? That is the case, right?
It's an implementation checklist.
Yes, absolutely.
So our role then is to go file RTIs and be like, who are these people on the FRC? Some of them will be not even alive anymore. Then you question the state to say that, okay, we are forming our FRC, you take these people's name.
Yeah.
In West Bengal, the RTIs don't get answered. Can I answer him and then we'll get back to you? So FRCs are non-functional, but mostly again because it has never been implemented properly. So Forest Department backs the FPCs. So even when FPCs themselves want to reconstitute into FRCs, there's a lot of hurdle on the institutional level. And before 2019 or 2020, the entire thing was completely nobody knew about FRA in that area. There was absolutely no implementation, nobody working or anything. It was only after the Turga Pump Storage project movement started and the PIL cases. In fact, PIL was filed on basis of 3 random IFRs that was distributed by the DLC in 2011 to 3 people in Badilahor village. There was no Gram Sabha. So when the PIL was formed, there was no Gram Sabha, no CFR, no nothing. So only after that, the talks about forming an FRC started, and FRC is functional at very ground level. Like some villages, they do their patrolling. Most of them have converted the FPCs itself into FRCs. The claims have been filed with Gram Sabha, but nothing could be done after that because the state doesn't want to implement it. The 2008 guidelines made it very popular.
My question was,
And even now.
CSO doing any work on that?
No, nothing. Nobody is doing anything. Even you are talking about women. In the newly formed Gram Sabhas have some women participation, but that's about it. So nothing is done institutionally.
Capacity development?
No, nothing.
Yes. Then,
in fact, I congratulate for the good presentations, all the 3 presentations. I used to work on FRA in 2007-8, those period. I don't see any change in, whatever I saw in those period. It's exactly the same thing presented here. I have 2 questions to you. One is on the second presentation. You presented about JFM program, BFM, BSS, eco development. That's all belong to the forest department, But FRA is a subject of the tribal department. And those days I observed that the institutional conflict between MOTA and Ministry of Forest and Climate Change, that percolated even at the ground level. What is your observation on that institutional conflict? Is it still persist? Or that's one question. Then the second question is to the first presentation. That's on your village belong to the buffer zone of the sanctuary area. What kind of observation you have on the social accountability of the forest side? Because it's a buffer zone, it's a protected area kind of a place, But FRA deals with the social accountability and giving batta to the people and responsibility on conservation. There is a high chance of big conflict between these 2 things. So do you have any insight on that?
About your question, actually we just had a very interesting discussion with Gitanjay Sahu on this in fact. So what we were discussing is that Forest Department is a colonial institution and MOTA is a post-colonial body, so it's a democratic body. And then we have the IFA, the entire already was set up. So you can look at it like that. The democratic body is kind of trying to fight with the colonial forest department, and it's kind of failing very badly, because since the birth of Forest Rights Act, we have been seeing the MOFCC continuously trying to hamper the entire process of MOTA or the Forest Rights Act becoming functional. And in West Bengal, also because of the party-state structure, the rigid control of the ruling party, the deliberative democracy that was promised to the Gram Sabha is kind of completely getting obstructed at every level. So on one hand, you get the institutional roadblock by the Forest Department, by the MOFCC, by a very big lobby of conservationist NGOs, and there is this entire magazine called Galat Training, which goes to the issues. It's just old IFS people who are trying to say that this is kind of leading to a lot of forest destruction. There's a Supreme Court case going on right now regarding validity of the FRA. And in state level, you get a political roadblock because the party structure will not give way to the deliberative democracy that was promised.
So I'll answer that and then take another question. Or do you have like, should I just go on the question? Okay. So on the question on conflict at the local level, so back in those days, like I think when FRA started, or I think even before that, I remember one of the pradhans in one of the villages, not all villages, in one village in DD Hut, not the Harchul, I think in DD Hut, what happened was a forest guard kind of harassed or perhaps slapped a Vanraji community member, and there was this whole fuss about, because he was in the forest, he went in the forest, ventured in the forest, and there was this whole scene that happened. And afterwards, that guard was suspended under the ST Atrocities Act. Afterwards, there are no such conflicts of community and forest department, as I think you mentioned, that the forest department says that we are giving you to go to the forest, do whatever you want to, you are getting kacha lakdi, you are getting timber, you are getting fodder, but we are not going to give you CFR rights legally. But de facto, you are using the forest. Why do you need CFR rights? So in that way, I think the dispute is not very much, the conflict between the community and the forest department is not very visible.
The point is the de facto is challenged.
Yeah.
De facto is something like a deep rate.
Yeah.
So it is challenged and it's become de facto, a real de facto.
De facto.
That's the point.
But yeah, I think on ground there are no everyday conflict that is going on at the moment, because FRA is also there, and also NGO had been working there very actively, specifically for Rajwar community. So whatever, anything happens, the community comes to the NGO and they kind of raise the voice at the district level, what is happening, this should not be it. And then forest department kind of is like, okay, they kind of get shy at peace, and they're like, okay, you do whatever you want to. But again, they are cognizant of the fact that there is illegal timber logging happening, but they're still not doing anything about it. So that's also a case of inactive, conflict there. Yeah.
So my question was just for perspective, both in the West Bengal case and the Uttarakhand case, for perspective for numbers. What are the numbers in terms of IFR, CFR? Whether claims have been filed, CFR claims have been filed at all or not, that wasn't clear in what you
No, there was no claims. Because there were consideration, as I said, the application to consider community forest rights was given to the DLC, but they said no, we'll do FIR for individual forest rights first.
CFR claim is just about a form, right?
But that didn't happen. So there was this mapping and exercise happening that didn't happen.
There was no civil society organization, or what is it?
There was, but then the state said that we'll do IFR first. So also the local organization kind of pushed for IFR only because the state said was okay, we'll do IFR first. At the moment, there are 83 households that have patta, not converted to revenue land, just a piece of paper that says this is the land that you and your family stays on.
This is IFR.
IFR. Only 83 out of 120 households. 83 out of 1.
Villages? One village.
There is 11 villages in total, out of which only No, but the whole Pithoragarh district, 10 villages. Okay, yeah, there are 9 villages in Pithoragarh, one in Champawat as well. Champawat, there has been no IFR, CFR rights that have been titled, but within the Pithoragarh district, there are 9 villages, and within those 9 villages, 83 households have been given the rights.
But what is the statement picture in terms of IFRs?
Sorry?
Uttarakhand, IFR?
Total Uttarakhand, I think there are somewhere...
Percentage would be fine.
Percentage, to be honest, I'm not very clear about how many IFR percentages there, but CFR is 0 for sure in the latest data. I think the data that she had shown would kind of represent that.
Would you be able to share the PPTs, please?
Yeah, of course. So I'm a little curious about, just because we have, we know that the Vangujas have
उत्तरकाशी में केवल उत्तराखंड में एक जगह है जो उत्तरकाशी में है, वहाँ पर CFR मिला वन गुजरों को, जहाँ पर कल आए थे मीर हमजा का प्रेजेंटेशन हुआ था, उन्होंने भी बताया होगा, तो वहाँ पर मिला है। और उसके अलावा और कहीं नहीं मिला है। जो राठी ट्राइब्स है उत्तराखंड के 11 गाँव में, तो 9 गाँव जो पिथौरागढ़ डिस्ट्रिक्ट के अंतर्गत है, जैसे ललित ने भी बताया था 83 इंडिविजुअल्स तो मिले हैं, लेकिन CFR एक भी नहीं है। उसके बाद चंपावत में एक गांव है खेतवारी करके, तो वहाँ पर अभी 2024 में सिर्फ 15 लैंड डीड्स मिले हैं। उसके बाद उधम सिंह नगर की बात करें तो वहाँ एक भी नहीं मिला है। तो ये अभी स्टेटस है वहाँ का।
FRA के अंदर मिला है क्योंकि वो रेवेन्यू लैंड में है।
वो उनको मिला है उसके अंतर्गत, सरकारी ग्रांट के अंतर्गत मिला है।
वो FRA का पार्ट है।
FRA का पार्ट है।
FRA बंगाल IFR.
IFR. Yeah, sorry. So this kind of goes through the data. So the percentage of claims that was rejected and numbers I can share with you because it is also very small here. So I can share the actual numbers with you later. This is the MOTA NPR status. It is highly. I mean, see this CFR LA in 2016 says that irrespective of what MOTA says, the number of it's basically 0 CFR recognition. So 2025, this is just MOTA data, but then again MOTA has a tendency to calculate all the CR areas, community resource areas as CFR areas and show it in MPR data. So I can give you the data, but this is also highly not very correct. But IFR, I have more reason to believe that IFR data has not been completely fabricated because there is a tendency to distribute IFR titles without going through Gram Sabha procedure. So that way you get a lot more IFR claims sanctioned as compared to the CFRR claims. This data is available online. I can also share with you.
In case of Uttarakhand, there are 184 individual land titles that have been distributed so far out of 3,500. So 184 out of 3,500 have been distributed so far in Uttarakhand.
7-8%.
Yeah, somewhere around that.
Yes, sir.
And there had been more than, I think, 3,000 community rights, out of which only one community title had been distributed in Uttarakhand, according to the data. So that's this. Yes.
Thank you so much for your presentation. I just wondered that while whatever percentage has been kind of admitted as CFRs or IFRs, has it been somewhere you have been able to understand that what we are doing with those CFR titles and IFR titles in terms of whether some work has really started, is there a planning process which has been set in motion? Is it something which will then possibly allow many people to kind of see the good work done and possibly press a better claim? That's one part of the story. If you have some stories to kind of put forth that, what has been the implementation, ground zero implementation on CFR, IFR? As such, people have been doing something about. Second is, very interesting, I'm very, very impressed. That's not the right point, but I think I am impressed by the West Bengal perspective. But JFMC committees, the state claims that around 5,000 such committees are there. Some 4.7 lakhs hectare of land has been, forest land has been protected. So much of revenue has been claimed by government, right? Somewhere there is a contrast which needs to be understood, to my mind. Because when I see perspective from government, they are putting up a picture which is not easy to kind of blindside. But yet the realities are these. Therefore, in multilateral programs, particularly the program by JICA, they have been doing a very concerted effort. Have you been able to kind of look at that? Because that's something which kind of bridges the gap. Thank you.
I'll just say one thing. JICA is a very interesting case. JICA and Purulia, they are funding a lot of JFMCs, but at the same time, JICA is the body that is partnering with the West Bengal State Electricity Board for this Council's project. So yeah, I mean, JICA, JPIC already have all of their funding, all of these projects, but now a lot of them have also making their funding. So you will get a lot of international funding for JFM now, and also the Forest Department itself has contracted. The number of staff has reduced, so it's also difficult for the Forest Department, at least in these areas, to maintain the FPCs. So that is there, and of course the conference that you were saying, it is because it really has one of the most robust JFM structures, but then again JFM is such a top-down process. It is completely done by Forest Department. Forest Department decides which kind of land is to be put under plantation and everything. And FRA as a very democratic bottoms-up approach is in kind of contrast with the entire structure of how Forest Department runs the JFM. It again boils down to this entire idea of Indian government power democracy. So would you like to answer the first question?
implementation.
Can I talk to the first question and then maybe answer?
Yeah.
So the CFRA process is something that I coordinated in 2016. So again, just to echo what you were saying, it's literally the same problems for 20 years. Nothing has changed. But I'm kind of wary about this whole thing of what has happened when CFRs have been given. So the most important thing to remember about the FRA is that it is placing a legal angle to all the existing rights. So we are talking about rights, we are not talking about duties here, which is the most important thing that we have to understand about CFR. So this whole framing of ये CFR मिला है तो इसके साथ आपने क्या किया है? So that framing to me is just, I don't understand how we are framing this, because it's a rights process. They are living on that land. If they were not living there, the Forest Department would have just cleared the land, and we know what's happening now. So this entire framing to me seems a little like problematic. The
It's not problematic. The point is
one second, just the JFM is a scheme. The FRA is a law. Very different things. So the scheme can be implemented by the department as it wants to implement it. The law cannot be implemented as whatever it has to be followed. So I think those are the critical differences that...
Appreciate. My submission here is very simple. It's not the question of rights vis-a-vis duties. It is basically something has been earned through a right process. Are we making good use of it? Because then the ecosystem knows about what has happened better. And therefore creates a good pressure to kind of move ahead with lot of force to get my rights again. So it's not that हमने अच्छा नहीं किया तो बंद कर दो, ऐसा नहीं. अगर अच्छा हुआ तो डॉक्यूमेंट होना चाहिए और फिर जनता के पास जाना चाहिए. That's how I have seen in Nirman's case in Vissa, particularly if you see Nayagarh, they have really created that provision. Their entire CSO, the gentleman who asked about CSOs, as a CSO they have really gone on work with community to put up a very good plan for CFR. And that has really ignited the entire community to move forward for their rights.
So we are running out of time.
Onus on people to show an example, to prove something, to implement the law. Is putting the...
I think MOTA
It's about onus.
realized this and brought out the guideline in 2023. The guideline is available now. So they also realized that as far as
it's true. It's not. I think it's not a question at all.
we have to work on that. The guideline is available now.
On that last point, is something happening at state level after the DA and the sort of the process that happened? Has the state submitted any proposals, or do you have any ideas about that?
About ground level, the only thing that is happening is this proposition of this hybrid Gram Samsad Sabha that Panchayat apparently wants to conduct in ground level. That was literally the only thing. Apart from that, CPM Yoga initiative had not kick-started in West Bengal yet, so we don't see any ground level implication of that.
Also the premise of that is recognition of rights of objects.
Thank you.
Yeah. So in order to sum up that debate, duty versus commercial aspect of getting something out of CFR or IFR. So in case of culturally, the process started in 2000 long back. There has been a presence of civil society. They are starting. So policy process in case of forest rights, they started in Maharashtra very early, and the latter part of years they have followed, but now it is starting, and it is both states are non-scheduled areas. Maharashtra is the scheduled area, so there are different governance structure where a lot of accountability expected from the state. And in case of Gadchiroli, what I know and understood that the coalition between the different stakeholders has come up in such a way that there are hundreds of Gram Sabhas came together forming this federations. And this idea, the idea of federation goes back to the first planning commission ka jo first year plan hai. If you go, that says in chapter 21 forests mein that the new independent state of India should move towards the making this minor forest produce towards the market. So the linkages towards the market was, as a policy agenda framed by the policymakers long back, and the idea of labor communities, cooperatives, that was also envisaged during that. So if you see that's it's very coming handy in Maharashtra, labor cooperative, but JFMC was idea, if you relate with it's a labor cooperative where you manage labors in order to manage the forest, and and in very that trickle-down effect was very less also, because they were never compensated what they should be in case of JFMCs. But here in Maharashtra, federations are managing their own, and they are getting what they deserve in case of bamboo or tindu, I guess. Any other question?
We don't have time, so we are
Okay.
So we are running out of time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us and for this very lively discussion. We are glad that we were able to, ignite discussions among the audience as well. And let's keep the conversation going. Thank you.